So this is sin. This is a part of their personality that more than likely they wish they didn't have, right? That they're bringing into the relationship. So can you offer them grace, right? Can you love them through it? Welcome, my name is Jessica Lewis. I'm the founder of Rise Up Queens, where I help women step into the freedom that Christ died for. Here on this channel, you will find many topics on physical intimacy, porn and working through that in your marriage, communication, triggers, and so much more. I hope you dive in with me and subscribe and create the best marriage you possibly can with your spouse right now. So today we're going to dive into what to do, how to cope with your significant other watching porn again. So in a Christian marriage, porn can be extremely detrimental. And so what do you do? How do you get through it? Thankfully, my husband's on the other side of that, but these are 6 things that have significantly helped me work through and not make it a dividing thing in our relationship. So the first thing that I needed to do was feel it. I could get angry, but anger for me is a secondary emotion. So when I get angry and I get frustrated, underneath that anger is this vulnerable piece, which is sadness and fear that I didn't let him see that side. He would just see the anger. And so I would disconnect from my feelings and disconnect from the sadness and disconnect from what the action actually did in our relationship. So my first challenge for you would be to actually feel what's going on and take a second to yourself and journal through it. Because if I avoid the feelings that I'm feeling underneath there, they're for sure going to continue to come up and they're going to often explode out somewhere else. So if your husband or wife watched porn again and they've said they weren't going to, can you connect with yourself to feel what's actually going on? The second thing, it's super important for me to fact check what I'm telling myself in these moments. Because one of the lies I used to tell myself was he's choosing that over me. I'm laying right next to him and he's choosing porn over connecting with me. And oftentimes, yes, that's true in one sense, but that wasn't serving our relationship. In those moments, I had to dial it back and say, what's actually going on? He learned this as a coping skill. Oftentimes, people that have addictions to porn are not necessarily addicted to what they're viewing. They're addicted to the change in their state that happens. As I've worked with hundreds and thousands of husbands, porn often, there's this desire to watch porn when there's this feeling of uncomfortability or this division that's in their marriage or this feeling that they don't like, that was a feeling that they felt in their childhood often or whenever they started watching it. And now there's this neural pathway in their brain, whenever they feel that feeling, this urge comes on. And guess what? When they satisfy that urge, they feel completely different afterwards. So whatever was going on inside them, porn is just the conduit to change how they're feeling. And so when I check in with he's choosing that over me, if I believe that statement, I will 100% withdraw from Skylar. But if we're going to be married forever and I want to have a great relationship, that's not going to serve the relationship. So what would serve the relationship is for me to check in with some truths, right? And see, is there something he could say to me in this moment that could help me get through this? And so Skylar used to say, I desire you. And that was a really hard statement for me to hear because based on what you just did, then I desire you was too far of something, like that didn't make me feel better because it felt like a direct lie, right? And so we had to come up with another statement in our marriage. So can he say something to you? And so what I asked him to say was, I'm committed to you and I'm continuing to get better at this. I'm committed to getting better at this thing and it's not going to have a hold on me. And I felt better with that statement. So he's committed to me and he's going to continue to get better at it. Because what was true was he was getting better at it. But my brain, every time he struggled with it, wanted to take him back to the very beginning, take him back to the original hurt, or take him back to the original infidelity. But it was true. He was getting better at it. And at one point, I even started to track it so that my brain knew the reality. Because sometimes we can overgeneralize things, especially when there are hurts and big emotions involved. And I was overgeneralizing that he was always watching porn. So this is one of the other points. Can you speak truth over yourself? Always means all the time. So when I overgeneralize things, it just blankets and it distorted my truth. I wasn't able to see actual reality. So I actually started to track in my phone the times that he struggled with porn. And if I'm tracking it, that means he's telling me. But some of you haven't created a space for you to have these conversations with your spouse, because maybe you blow up and they go into more shame and it causes more division. And if that's you, I have other videos on this because that used to be us, right? But if you're tracking it, then you know about it, right? And if you know about it, that means your spouse is willing to show their ugly to you. They're willing to show the parts of themselves that they may be most shameful of. And so are you willing to handle those parts with compassion? See, this might not be your struggle, but let's say you have another struggle. Let's say your struggle is revenge or anger or unhealthy control or manipulation. Sometimes we make one sin more detrimental than the other sin, but is that actually true? So this is sin. This is a part of their personality that more than likely they wish they didn't have, right? That they're bringing into the relationship. So can you offer them grace? Right? Can you love them through it? Can you see the best in them before they see the best in themselves? And for me, the only way that I know that I could do that is me having a strong enough relationship from the Lord. See, when I'm seeking all of my happiness, all of my fulfillment, all of my connection from Skylar, when I put all of that onto him, then I am bound to be disappointed because I am married to an imperfect person. Just as if he were to put all of that stuff onto me, he would feel the exact same. And so am I connected to the Lord? And is my relationship with the Lord more important than my relationship with Skylar? Because only then am I willing to love him through his ugly and love him through his sin and see the best in him before it has come true. But one thing I do know to be true is that men and women are motivated by great coaches in their life that saw something in them, or people in their lives that saw something in them before they actually stepped into it. So they had people in their lives that created space for them to be better than what they were. And I believe that's what we are called to do as husbands and wives, that we are supposed to create a space and see this person for who they are becoming, rather than defining them by their past and what they have done. And so that would mean that you would need to be looking for the progress. You would need to be looking for the growth. Because what I used to do is, let's say Skylar had 25% progress on this thing, let's say, whenever he made a mistake, it would wipe him back down in my mind to zero. And he would get all that progress wiped out and he would have to start over. But what's true is he actually had 25% progress. So am I willing to recognize the progress? Am I willing to appreciate the effort? Am I willing to take notice of the steps that they're taking towards becoming better in this area? Or is perfection my standard? And you are bound to be disappointed if perfection is your standard. There's just no way around that. So would you be willing to treat your spouse, whoever struggles with this, like you would your child, with extra grace, with speaking life into them and what they can become, and being willing to forgive and disconnect your identity and who you are from their sin? So that was a big learning lesson I had to go through with. This wasn't an attack on me, right? There's many ways that Skylar can attack me, or my husband can attack me, but this wasn't an attack on me. This was his struggle. So I could continue to isolate him, withdraw from him, and push him away in his struggle. Or I could come alongside him and say, no matter what, I'm not leaving you, and I know that you can do this. Those create completely different feelings within inside me as well as within inside him. So I challenge you to stay away from always and never. Can you love them through this? Is there something that he can say to you in the meantime, like, hey, I'm committed to getting better at this, right? And then they actually do it. Or do you need to ask for what you need in another way? Are there boundaries that you need to set up that would make you feel more comfortable? Because I totally get it. Broken trust is very difficult to deal with in a relationship. And so are there any boundaries you can set up around this? Are you asking for them to share? And do you have a place where they can share openly about this stuff? Or do there need to be devices or apps or things on the phone or things on the TV or things in places? Are there boundaries that need to be in place so that you feel more comfortable and you can lean in to trusting? We believe that emotional suffering in a relationship at times is optional. And the way that I responded and the things that I told myself when this used to happen in our relationship very much so mattered. Because when I can see Skylar's sin as sin or my sin as sin, I'm able to have compassion and grace. But when I see it as a personal attack against me, it's absolutely devastating. And so as you gain freedom in your relationship from this, I'm challenging you to possibly look at it differently and walk alongside your partner versus isolating and alienating them. So I'd love for you to comment with whatever stood out for you below and what you're going to do about it. And definitely share this with a friend if they have a significant other that's struggling with this as well.